All right, guys, it's Emmanuel, the first video of the year in 2023, and I'm just gonna give you a little update on the journey so far in the brand new smma agency that we've started in November, catering to the health and wellness industry specific to physiotherapists. I'm just gonna recap about 5 tips that I've learned since starting the agency that I just love to share to you guys if you guys are thinking about starting your agency journey, and I just hope that these tips can help you. Tip number 1 is quality over quantity. When we started in November, we started off with about 30 cold calls a day, and it was during business hours, and we quickly realized that's probably not gonna be enough to get the clients that we need and scale with volume. So we switched to volume in January. We were doing about 100 cold calls a day each, 200 in total, in the first 2 weeks of January of this year. And then the third week, we realized, okay, this is probably not the best way to do it because we were doing about 200 cold calls a day each, and we were getting about 80 calls back that we were answering, or we were getting about 100 calls back, and we were missing about 40 calls a day, which the numbers is like, to us, we just thought, man, we might as well just dial back a little bit, which we switched to 65 cold calls, and we were able to miss less calls and have more conversations. Like, it's cool to even do 500 to 1,000 cold calls a day, but if you're getting, let me just backtrack. The way we were doing this was, so we started in November, we were doing cold calls during business hours, and then in January we switched to leaving messages early in the morning. So at 6 a.m. every day we're doing our outbound calls and we're leaving messages. And we found this to be very effective because not only is the owners and the receptionist calling us back, but it puts us at an advantage whenever they're calling us back. It's not a cold call and they can't just like hang up, even though sometimes they do still, but the chances of them hanging up and saying, ah, man, like this is a cold call, no, I'm not interested, is less than them calling us back, giving us a moment of their time to pitch what we have to offer, and they're much more receptive is what we found. So we dialed it back a bit in the third week of January. We're doing about 60 to 65 cold calls a day each. So that puts us at about 120, 130 cold calls, and we're able to pick up more phone calls and have more conversations with the receptionists and the owners. One thing that I have to say about cold calling, I would definitely recommend it as opposed to doing emails, because you also have to switch your perspective and walk in the business owner's shoes. If you're sending out a bunch of emails, let's say 100, 1,000, 500 emails a day, the chances of them opening their emails is very unlikely, because if you take a second and go through your email, you probably have a bunch of emails with advertising, marketing that you know what it is, so you're not even going to open it, and it just goes to the bottom of the pile as more emails start to come in. So with cold calling, we found it's just easier to connect and have a real conversation with real people and get a gauge on where they're at with interest levels. And then that also gives us an opportunity to book right away to an appointment to really pitch what we have to offer, or if they're even willing to give us the time, we can pitch them right there on the phone while their interest is high. Although you can definitely do this with emails, no doubt about it, I just feel like it's that much more better just to have a human connection straight there on the phone rather than just an email that they know could be just sent by bots and just can be spam. And so, speaking of spam, emails can go to the spam folder, and you sending out those emails, especially with a fresh new account as you're starting your agency, it's not registered enough on the back end when it comes to Gmail, or they haven't received an email from you to begin with. So it might just go to spam or junk and they may never ever see it. So I definitely recommend cold calling. And speaking of spam, when you get a new number, like we're doing it through a CRM that we're able to get a number through Twilio. And a lot of the times, well, not a lot of the times, but we've had about 2 or 3 people say that we didn't answer on the first call because it's likely spam. And what we noticed with us calling at 6 a.m. till about 8 a.m., We leave a voice message, they call us back. So that spam feature kind of goes away because we're calling so many people that the number is probably registering on other people's account as spam. It only makes sense, right? Because you're doing a lot of volume of outbound calls as opposed to someone who's just calling someone about 5 to 10 times throughout their day. We're doing over 100 calls on these numbers at volume. So it registers on especially cell phones as sometimes spam. So just be cautious of that when you're making your cold calls, especially if you're using an alternative number like Twilio. Point number 2, follow up. It's very, very important that you follow up with your potential prospects and potential clients like your life depended on it. I think it's very important to follow up and make note of that, whether you're putting it in your notepad, Google Docs, or even in your CRM. You have to make note to follow up religiously because we're learning that the deals are in the follow-up. Someone might say that they're interested on your initial call, but they might forget because they have so much stuff going on, such as life, that they forget to even touch back or even go through whatever proposal that you may have sent out to them. So it's very, very, very important that you follow up, especially within your first few weeks of interacting with someone, and be prepared to follow up for a year plus. Just because someone is not interested in the first meeting or the first month or in the first 6 months to a year doesn't mean that the deal can't be closed within the next year or two. And you also have to build that mentality of, I am willing to follow up with this person until they die, like literally. Even if they tell you to F off and just never, ever, ever call us again, 6 months from now, they might not even remember and they might be in need of the service that you're offering. So just have that mentality to just follow up until death does you apart, literally. And that goes into my point number 3. Prime yourself and get yourself in a mentality where it puts you at an advantage, not only against your competitors, but the people that you're contacting. What we've noticed is when we first started, again, we started our calling at about 8, 9 a.m. and then we dialed it back a little bit more. Now we're waking up about 4 or 5. And then already that just waking up between 4 and 5 and being on our first team Zoom meeting at 5:30 puts us at an advantage because we're already primed. We're already thinking, man, nobody is waking up this early to reach out and close deals that are not guaranteed money. Like, this is something that we have to build our character and our mindset on. Like, we have to make sure that we're just outworking everybody, even the people that we're calling. I hope that makes sense. So put yourself in the mind frame. You are better than the person that you were yesterday, the people that you're calling, and your competitors that are calling the same people that you're trying to prospect. So whether that's waking up early, going to the gym right when you wake up, or reading some books or some inspirational stuff, you have to prime yourself to thinking that you can withstand what is about to be thrown at you throughout the day, because you're going to get calls that people are saying, don't ever call me again. You might get cussed out. You might get hung up on. And when you're going throughout the day and you're getting 30, 40 people who are saying the exact same thing, like, no, we're not interested, or hang up, don't call me again, or sometimes they cuss you out, you have to be mentally prepared for that. And it's very important to also get a good night's sleep in order to withstand these 10+ hour days. And that brings us to point number 4. Don't take things too personally. You don't know what's going on the other side of the phone or the other side of the screen when you're reaching out to these people. So you cannot take things too personally. You don't know if this person got a ticket before coming into the office. You don't know if they got into an argument with their spouse. You really don't know. So you always have to be in a neutral mindset of, I am just trying to help this person no matter what they say on the phone. Even if they cuss me out, I will call them back in a week or 2 from now to see what we can do to service them and close a deal. You literally have to have that mindset and not take things too personally, because you are going to get a lot of no's on the phone. You are probably going to feel insulted. You're going to feel like your ego has taken a hit, but you just have to keep moving forward and not take things too personally, and just keep making the next call, send out the next email, send out the next proposal, or send out the next DM, and just keep moving. The more conversations, the more quality conversations that you can have, the better your chances are of closing a deal. So just do not take things too personally and keep things moving. Which brings us to our next point. This is a long-term game. You want to have, as well as the mentality that you're outworking everybody and you're outdoing yourself on a daily basis, you want to keep in mind that this is a long-term game. You want to feel as though that you are going to do this for the next 2, 5, 10, 20, 40, 50 years. Like, you really have to put yourself in that mind frame and not think that this is going to be an overnight thing and you can just get to 100K in 1 month. Although people have done that and it's been documented all over the internet, you have to be realistic with yourself, and to build a sustainable business that is going to last you a very, very long time, whether you want to build it up to sell, or build it up as a cash flow machine, or build it up to have in your business portfolio for years and years and years to come, you have to be able to think long term and not get too discouraged by the short term losses. No matter how long it's going to take you to hit your monthly or yearly goals, whether that's 10, 20, 30, 40, or even $100,000 plus, you have to be in this for the long haul. Because if you get your short-term wins and your short-term results and that's all you're banking on, it's going to be very difficult for you to withstand any of the downfalls that happen in being an entrepreneur, owning a business, building your business off of paid ads, cold calling. Not every day is going to be 100%. So you have to be willing to think long term. Even if you have a bad day, bad week, bad 2-3 months, you have to be able to keep trekking, and say to yourself that I'm willing to do this for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years, because that's how much I'm willing to sacrifice to build this business in which I believe so much in. Bringing us to our final point, be open to change. Starting this business in November, I started it with my partner, Martin, who handles the back end side of things, and I handle more so of the sales. Man, I've been doing this for quite some time, a few years, I started in the whole marketing space in 2013, right? And have done videos, have done social media management, and was wearing a whole bunch of hats, which I've quickly realized that I can't sustain that either, because the levels that I want to scale my business in requires more than one person. Even if I'm able to kickstart it and start it off, you will need to start delegating to other people, which brought me to meet my business partner, Martin, who handles, like I said, the back end, and I do the sales side of things. And we have a goal within the next few months to hit $20,000 a month, which I think we're on track to doing. Currently in January, we've signed 6 clients so far, and we're about to onboard 2 more clients this upcoming week. So I definitely think we're on track to hitting our $20,000 a month goal sooner than later. But you just have to be open to change. If things, especially with working with people, or even in your current strategies on how you're prospecting and onboarding and getting new clients, you have to be open to change with those methods as well. Although you want to think long term, the activity in your day-to-day have to be quick and adaptive, and you have to be ready to switch your strategy, not completely, but just tweak it a little bit so it's refined and you get it, and you are getting the results that you want in the most efficient way possible. Those are my 6 quick tips on what I've learned so far. I would definitely recommend, like I said, doing cold calling over emailing, just because cold calling, you just are able to have a more personalized relationship. You're able to read people's tone over the phone, how they feel about certain things that you're offering them, rather than just an email. And it's much harder to rebuttal an email than in person while you have someone on the phone. So if you're starting in the SMMA world and you're starting your new agency and you're starting on the journey of trying to get your first client, I would definitely recommend doing a lot of cold calling. And when I say a lot, I mean quality cold calling, having quality conversations to move the deals forward one call and one touch point at a time. I hope this tip helps. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.